Hello, all. Welcome to another session of this interesting course titled Legal Essentials for Human Resource Management. Now, this is week 4, and we are in the session 19 of this course. So, if you remember our past sessions, we were looking at social security in detail, and we have looked at what is the definition of social security, as well as we were discussing certain acts in detail. Today, let's look into Provident Fund Act, which is a significant legislation, and it intends to provide some sort of support, especially post retirement, to all sort of employees and workers. Now, what is the coverage? Who all will benefit from this act? What are the various schemes under this act? All we'll discuss in today's session as well as the next session. Given the gravity and weightage of this topic, I would be dealing with this topic in 2 sessions. So without much delay, let's start today's session, which is on Provident Fund Act 1952. And as you remember, my name is Dr. Amesh Samalopanan, and I'm from Nalsa University of Law, Hyderabad. Now, what is Provident Fund? I'm sure you heard about this term if you're somebody who's an employee who's working in any establishment. Of course, except certain establishments. Or I'm sure you've heard it as a student, that your father or mother who is employed, or a brother or a sister, are talking about the concept of Provident Fund. What is it actually? Now, Provident Fund is a structured saving scheme that offers employees an opportunity to amass a financial reserve during their working years, so that at the time of retirement they can be stable and comfortable. So the whole idea of Provident Fund is that you have a corpus which is ready by the end of your service period, so that at the time of your retirement you don't have to worry. So if you remember, one of the very relevant pillar of social security is pensions, post retirement taking care. So Provident Fund, of course, is a step towards post retirement a financial reserve amassment. Now you might ask why we need an act for it. I make some money and I save a portion of my salary in the savings account, or mutual fund, or stocks. I save the money for my retirement. Why you need an act? Now, that's where you should know about the basic nature of human beings, that you wouldn't want voluntarily often to save a part of your salary. You would like to, because expenses are so much, and it's not just the needs you have, but you also have your wants and wishes, right? So you would not naturally, that's a behavioral problem. I know, even though the proverbs say that if you save at the time of good times, when the bad time comes in, you can make money. But that doesn't happen with human beings naturally. Another aspect of Provident Fund Act is that, or why this entire corpus is such an interesting topic, is that it's not just an individual effort. It's not like that you save a specific part of your money in the savings account. No. It is a collaborative effort where it's not just the employee who saves, it's not just the employee who contributes the money, but also the employer. So both has to contribute. So that's one differentiation. In a savings account, it's just you who put in that too, nobody compels you. So there's a behavioral angle to it where you don't want to put money into the savings account. You are like, okay, I'm getting 30,000 this month. Let me just splurge the entire money that I have earned. Second differentiation is that it's not just the employee who saves the money, but the employer also puts a share of the amount. And the third thing is that you cannot take money from this. It's your saving account. You feel like, oh, this is a good car. Let me buy it. Oh, this is a good ring, gold ring. Let me buy it. You can take money for anything you want, right? But you cannot take money from the provident fund account as you wish. No, I mean, you cannot take as per your wishes and wants. Of course, it is reserved for retirement needs, but during certain emergencies also you can take, but it is only restricted for emergencies. Unlike a savings bank account or a mutual fund amount that you save. So three differentiations. One, this is a mandated thing. So even salary in hand, even before that, the employer will deduct the amount from your salary. So you don't have to save it. It is deducted automatically from your salary. Second, it's a contributory stuff. It's a collaboratory stuff where the employer also pays a section of the amount. And third, you cannot take the money out from this account as per your wishes. Only during retirement or during certain emergencies, you can take money from this account. Now just look at the entire development of this provident fund regime in India. So if you look at this concept emerged at the time before independence. So it was originally designed for benefits of employees who were serving under the British administration. So they started this provision. And the entire objective of this act was, so that came in 1925, the initial act which the Britishers brought in. So it was, the objective of it was that employees had a reliable mechanism to save their retirement, save for their retirement or for their financial emergencies. So Britishers brought in the social security provisions so that there is some cushion. But it was restricted for people in the British administration, which was quite a just a few people. The coverage wasn't extended to a lot of sectors. Now, post-independence, of course, the elected government, the people's government, which was elected by the people of the country, for the first time realized that this act is a very good act. This is a very significant act and contributes to the social security of the workers. So they decided to revamp this act and to come up with a very comprehensive version of it. So in 1952, they came up with Employees Provident Fund and Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1952. Now, while the original act was for British administrated or rather employees working with the British administration, this act extended its coverage beyond government employees, but to a lot of industries, establishments, very robust provisions in terms of how the money will be collected, who will be overseeing it, all those things came up. The establishment of funds, who will oversee it, who will regulate it, who will manage it, what if the employer doesn't pay a fraction of money, all those details came. And this act was applicable to all part of India except Jammu Kashmir until the State Reorganization Act came in. Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act came in 2019, and from now on it is applicable there also. Before that, they had a separate Provident Fund Act, state specific. Now, this act compulsorily cover the establishment which I'm going to say. So, the Provident Fund Act is compulsorily applicable to certain establishments, and to certain establishment it's by choice, and to certain establishment they cannot have it even if they want. So there are three categories which you need to understand. So the compulsory coverage category are these three categories which you can see here, which are every factory employing 20 or more persons. So 20 as a number you will see is very significant in labor law. Often that becomes the cutoff where a lot of acts get applied. Some act will go up to 10, the number is 10. 10 becomes the floor number for classifying. And that is another irony. You will see that just think of any business establishment that you see around you, and you realize that in most of those establishments 10 people are not working, less than 10 people are not working. So by the definition or by the cutoff of number of workers, most of these provisions will not be applied, or rather all of these provisions will not be applied to any workplace where less than 10 people are not working. That's another irony. We'll discuss that later. So compulsory coverage is for any factory that employs more than 20 or more than 20 people, subject to the industry the factory operates in, and falls under the purview of Schedule 1 of the 1952 Act. So essentially the idea is that it should be an industry, and it should have, and how to define industry and all we have already discussed, so I'm not going there. 20 members has to be there. Another category of workplaces where PF Act applies is every establishment or class of establishment where more than 20 people are there, notified specifically on this behalf by central government or by way of notification of official gazette. So one is, it has to be an industry, it should be a factory that comes under the industry definition and should have more than 20 people, or it should be any establishment which have more than 20 people and is notified by the central government. Another set of establishments where this act applies, or there's a compulsory coverage, is a set of establishment which comes under the definition of industry, which is our first coverage. Second, which is notified by the central government. But both the cases we told that it has to be minimum 20 people. But let's say it had 20 people, it was coming under the purview of Provident Fund, and then it falls below 20. If it falls below 20, still they would be under compulsory coverage. This is an argument I always hear, that sir, we no longer have 20 people working with us, we just have 18 people working with us. Will we be covered under PF Act? Yes. So you will continue to be governed by the Act. Now, who all can voluntarily subscribe to the provisions of this Act? So an establishment which does not otherwise fall under the purview of the Act, which we have discussed in the last category, they can get themselves covered voluntarily when the employer and the majority of its employees agree that the provisions of the act should be made applicable to the establishment. So let's say any establishment which doesn't fall into the purview of the definitions of compulsory coverage, but the employer and majority of its employees agree that the provisions of the act can be applicable unto the establishment, then they can join this provision. Now you might ask me why. Of course, any sort of social security provision has to be given to the workers, and employer might, being a welfare focused employer, might agree to the fact that let's provide provident fund scheme to the our employees, and employees might also be happy putting an amount into this provident fund because there are certain tax benefits associated with it, and they might pick provident fund as a pension or post retirement option over, let's say, NPS or something. So that way people might pick up voluntarily also. So this can be done from the date of agreement or from any subsequent date specified in such agreement. So ensure there is an agreement between the employer and the employees. Now this act does not apply if it is an establishment which employ less than 50% and working without the aid of the power. So you will see in labor law, power becomes a very, power as in electricity, that kind of power. So you have machines which works on electricity and power, any other forms of power, then it becomes serious. But if it is more of a cottage industry where machineries which does not require power is used, some of the provisions are relaxed. Similarly, if you have less than 50 people but you don't use any machinery which is done by the aid of power, and it is formed under the Cooperative Societies Act, then they are exempted from the provisions of Provident Fund. Not just exempted, they cannot apply. I mean, the non-applicability of the act is there. If it is another category, is if it's any central or state government controlled establishment and they have a contributory provident fund or an old age pension, then also act cannot be applied because they already have a retirement scheme in terms of a contributory pension that is happening, or old age pension without contributory before. I mean, they already, most of the employees are been working there for many years and they have a old age pension scheme, then also they cannot opt for a provident fund scheme. Another category is any other establishment set up under any central, provisional or state act and whose employees are entitled to the benefits of contributory provident fund or old age pension in accordance with any scheme or rule formed under the act governing such benefits. So first was about central, state government controlled establishment. Now if it is an establishment set up by central, provincial or state act, so that is there, and they have contributory provident fund or old age pension, they can also not be part of the scheme. Now this act, before getting into the benefits or various provisions of this act ensures that there are certain organizations and committees that are set up. The act devises for these mechanisms which oversees the entire collection, payment, management of the provident fund concept. So one such organization is called as Employees Provident Fund Organization, EPFO. Now this is a statutory body devised under the provisions of Provident Fund Act under the administration of Ministry of Labour and Employment, Government of India. and it's the duty of this organization to administer every aspects of provident fund. If you look at the sheer numbers, EPFO is the world's largest social security organization, and it maintains 27.74 crores account. Imagine the sheer size of it. Very few countries in the world which have a population above this. And now this is an organization which have account more than 27.74 crores. That's such a huge social security provision as well as an organization. And the vision of EPFO is to ensure Nirbandh service delivery to its stakeholders through state-of-art technology, which means that they want to provide a seamless and uninterrupted service delivery by which they intend to extend universal coverage of this social security provision, which is Provident Fund. The mission of EPFO, it's good to know, is to meet the evolving needs of comprehensive social security in a proper technology driven manner. So the entire mission is to ensure social security and have a Nirbandh service which is, as I told, seamless and without any breakage services when it comes to because just imagine this is a life saving of 27 plus crore plus people. This is the amount they are saved for their old age, their marriage of their daughter, house construction. So it has to be quickly delivered. It has to be handled with utmost maturity and sincerity. So this entire organization ensures that that is done in a proper manner. Now this act also asks to constitute a central board of trustees, and they oversee the entire mechanism of Provident Fund Act. And there is a central board of trustees that has been set up with a 5-year duration. And there is a chairman, there's a vice chairman, there is representatives from central government, there is a representative from the state government, there are representatives from the employers, there are representatives from employees. So it's a comprehensive trust which have representatives from all the parties when it comes to labor relations. And this trust takes care of this entire Provident Fund mechanism. Now, with a basic idea of what is Provident Fund and how it is managed and managed by whom, we can move ahead to discussing what would be the various provisions provided under this Provident Fund Act in our next session. To give you a small recap of today's session, we have looked at what is Provident Fund. We have looked at the historical evolution of the concept of Provident Fund over the years. We have looked at what are the various establishments which are compulsorily covered under the Act and which are compulsorily not covered, but if the people intend to join, they can join the voluntarily coverage category, as well as establishment in which the Act does not apply. We have also looked at various organizations and board of trust that has been established as per the provisions of the Act. With that small recap, let me wind up today's session. We'll meet in our next session while we will discuss more about Provident Fund and its various provisions. Until then, thank you so much. You have a great day ahead. Thank you.